Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about languages that I know. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, by the way, I actually have a question. How many programming languages are you proficient in? Like being able to build something useful in, like a page or a game or a whole app or a malware, etc. I don't mean being a master of those languages, just knowing every library and every feature, but having enough skills so that you can use that language in some way. And how many years did it take you to reach that level per language? Oh, dear Lord. Okay, let's see here now. I don't think it's too many languages here. I'm gonna have to go to my LinkedIn profile now and just get myself a little bit of a reminder here, because that's gonna be a while. So let's see what lies I'm telling on my CV. Well, it looks like on here I claim to know. Alright, let's see here. So, Java, Python, PHP, Ruby, well, that was a long time ago I did Ruby, C++, Rust, I love Rust. Let's see here. I already said, okay, so JavaScript, C, that was a million years as well. Swift, Kotlin, also a million years. Scala, hey, yeah, I do Scala every day, so hey, there we are. And I think that should be it. No, sorry, here's even, okay, Elixir. Yes, Elixir is a great language. I used that to create a proof of concept for at my last job. TypeScript, which is kind of JavaScript. Well, not exactly, but you know. And then Golang. So that should probably be it. Now, as to the answer to how long it took me to learn these languages, I'm just going to give you, well, I'm going to give you the truth. And that is that it took me about 2 years to learn Java and JavaScript, because I was learning these two languages in parallel. And then every other language after that took a few weeks each. Why is that? Well, it's because of this thing I've said a few times to you before in other videos, well, some of them at the very least. When it comes to programming experience, something that I think is very true, that a very wise programmer said, unfortunately it wasn't me, I would have loved to have said this because it's very true. He said that most people say that they know a lot of different programming languages, but this person argues that since almost all languages that we are using in mainstream programming today are derived or derivative, or let's call it very similar at the very least, to Java, we don't actually know different languages, we just know different dialects of the same language. And I think that is beautifully put, because it's actually true. The difference between, say, Java and, I think, no, I don't actually say that, but I do know C# well enough to actually build things as well. So the differences between C# and Java are very, very minor. Like, they are so alike, for a very good reason, because C# was imitating Java in many ways, and so it was heavily inspired by a lot of those concepts. So being able to adopt that language is literally as hard as just learning the main concepts of that ecosystem, and vice versa. I would actually go as far as to say, to learn the syntax of a language, it usually doesn't take more than a few weeks of practice at most, once you have mastered the core skills of programming, when you really know, like, what are all the different constructs, what are the different patterns, and you know all of these basics that are pretty much common in every language. They cross the borders of communities, right? Once you get there, getting the next language is really only about learning the quirks, the differences between each language, and kind of the strengths, and a lot of libraries. That's something that always gets you. I mean, if you wanted me to go and do Python today, guys, I would have to look up a lot of stuff. Like, I can't produce things in it, no problems whatsoever, but I'm not going to sit there and do a live coding session, you just kind of sit and hack away in the same way as I would if you asked me to do something in, say, JavaScript or Scala, which is something I did that a few hours ago. So that, I hope that makes sense to you. Like, once you learn one of the languages and you really know that stuff, and the other languages are very similar, it doesn't take that long to learn how to actually build something, and then you look things up. You kind of just I mean, I don't know how many things I looked up when I was doing Swift for this iOS app I was building back in the day, a few years ago. I mean, the app was working, it was great. We had we had test users and so forth, and people loved it. But I mean, nobody could tell that I had literally sat down, took a few Udemy courses just to get the basics of the interfaces, because when it comes to mobile development, I used to work with Android, and iOS was new to me. Well, then I need to learn the basic interfaces. It was really about just figuring out, okay, how does this ecosystem actually work? The syntax was pretty straightforward. That went pretty well. So what I want you to take away from this is that it took me about 2 years to learn Java and JavaScript when I was learning that, and to get fairly good at it. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I will die before I remember from memory how to configure from scratch a Java application server and just get all the routes correct from the get-go. Unless I'm using Spring Boot or something like that. If I'm doing that, I will be fine. But that web XML and mapping out all the URLs and just doing that from memory, I will never get it right. Not on the first try. So, but once you get to a point where you kind of learn one language that is very similar to a lot of the other languages, and most of these languages that I list, they are practically identical in terms of the concepts. Well, then moving from one thing to the other is literally about learning the differences and learning the APIs and the libraries and so forth, and that you can pretty much look up because the needs are the same. I don't have to relearn how to do basic logic in, say, PHP if I know it in Java, and vice versa. I just have to understand the core concept and then figure out how to express it in that other language. And that's where that's the tricky part. And usually to get productive, since we have this amazing amount of content about that people provide on Stack Overflow, you basically just say, oh yeah, I know I need to have a package manager, I need to do something like that. Okay, what is a good package manager in PHP? Well, Composer is very popular, so hey, there you go, there is a package manager, and then you get a very small tutorial where you can type, it takes 5 minutes to figure out, aha, that's how I include that code. Once you know how all of this works in another language, then you're really solid. So once you get that first language, the others are going to go like that. But I want you to also know something. It's not about the amount of languages you know, necessarily. It is about those core skills that I've been talking about a few times before. Core skills and really knowing how to do software development is much more important than the vast quantity of languages you know. Because the only thing that really matters at the end of the day is, do you have the skills in the language that you need to work in at that given moment? Because who cares if you know 1,000 languages if you're never using them? That's like knowing how to say a few phrases in other languages, but since you never actually practice it and you don't actually use it all that often, it's not actually giving you anything, apart from maybe some very shallow bragging rights to people who don't know any better. Have a great day.